What is good, YouTube? It's your boy Supreme Latias 14. Welcome to another installment of my Pokemon Unite Deep Dive series, where we take a look at a Pokemon, talk about it in full depth, and talk about whether it is worth purchasing with your aeos coins. So, before we get started with this episode, I just want to apologize I didn't bring you guys a stream yesterday. I woke up yesterday morning and I was not feeling well at all. I was feeling quite nauseous. Um, I didn't have much energy. I think I might have been something with regards to my workplace. Excuse me. And as you can probably tell, I still have a little bit of it in me, but I'm feeling a whole lot better than I was as I was before. By the time you guys are watching this video, um I'm definitely feeling much better than I was before. Just had a little bit of slight cough here and there. That's pretty much about it. But other than that, I'm doing much better, guys. So I will definitely be live later tonight with some Unite. I do apologize once again to those that really wanted a Scarlet Violet stream, but unfortunately I couldn't bring you guys one this week. I'm gonna try my best to bring you guys two of them this upcoming week. Maybe what I'll do is this upcoming Thursday and Friday, I will do Scarlet and Violet if you guys want that, of course. So or what I can do is I can make a poll and talk about if you guys want two Scarlet and Violet streams back to back to make up for not having one this past week, or if you prefer to keep the schedule at a normal pace, basically. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for that. That's gonna be coming up pretty soon. So I will have that up as soon as I can. Also, a little quick announcement. I'm very close to hitting 4,000 watch time hours. Honestly, I really cannot thank you guys so enough for tuning into the streams. It's been a lot of fun, and I cannot thank you guys enough for tuning in to watching these videos as well too. You guys have been made this all possible. Thank you guys so much. Hopefully soon I will be able to have access to membership, so I can give you guys membership pretty soon. So it's gonna be a heck of fun. I cannot wait. So thank you guys once again so much. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. So as you guys already know by the title of this video, we're going to be doing a deep dive, and today's Pokemon is going to be, of course, Hoopa. Ale Hoopa Ring. Yes, Hoopa is going to be this week's Pokemon Unite deep dive here. So Hoopa is a supported Pokemon, and it is basically there to help the team with a lot, honestly. So, Hoopa recently did get some buffs, which we're gonna of course be talking about that as well. If you guys have not watched my video where I went over all the buffs and nerfs, I had mentioned that Hoopa did get some buffs that I felt like definitely was definitely well needed for this Pokemon. Um, but are the buffs enough to make it work? Well, we're gonna go ahead and talk about that right now. I'm gonna give you guys my 2 cents on it, and of course, all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and go into this Pokemon here. So obviously, as you already know, Hoopa is a supporter. Unlike most supporters, it is not the most tankiest supporter. It is pretty squishy, as you can tell. Its endurance is really not that great. It does have pretty good mobility and pretty decent offense for a supporter, which is pretty cool. But obviously, Hoopa, as you already know, has two forms. It does have its Unbound form, which is accessible with its Unite as well. So you see here, with Hoopa's Unbound form, it gains a lot more offense, gains a lot more endurance, lacks mobility, lacks scoring, and lacks support. But of course, we're going to talk about this. We're going to look into all of Hoopa's moves, but we're going to of course start with the base with this form of Hoopa first, because obviously this is something we need to of course talk about, and then we'll go into the Unbound form later on in this a bit later. So this video might be slightly longer because there's quite a bit to go over in this when it comes to this Pokemon. So let's go ahead and dig into this. So let's start with Hoopa's basic, as well as talk about is passive. So let's go ahead and talk about this. So Hoopa's basic attack becomes a boosted attack with every third attack, dealing damage to a opposing Pokemon by unleashing a beam of light. When Hoopa is unbound, it unleashes beams of light with every basic attack, dealing damage up to two nearby opposing Pokemon. So basically, with every third attack, it deals damage, of course. So nothing too crazy. But when it's in an unbound form, the beam of light actually does damage up to two nearby Pokemon. So basically, with Hoopa Unbound, you're going to be able to have access to that basic attack that does damage to two nearby Pokemon instead of one. So you'll be able to hit two Pokemon for the price of one, which is pretty cool. Other than that, nothing too crazy on the basic, obviously, for Hoopa. Now, Hoopa's passive is Magician, which is actually pretty good in my opinion, because what this ability does is allows you to take a random berry, whether it's one of the berries that's in the middle, like that little green berry, I forgot what it's called, that gives you movement speed. It also steals citrus berries from the opposing side of the field and brings it and teleports it to where Hoopa is located. So basically, what this does, and let's read it real quick. In battles where the map is divided into an ally side and an opposing side, this ability creates a hole under one of the berries on the opposing side, chosen at random, and warps it to right in front of Hoopa. Now, sometimes this passive also warps the green berries. I forgot what it's called, but the green berries that's in the center area. In which, when you eat the berry, when you get to the berry, you actually get a movement speed increase with those berries. However, there are no berries on the opposing team's side, but there is aeos energy. It takes energy. It picks up energy basically. So if there's no berries on the enemy side, basically the whole right side of the map, if there's no berries on that side, like there's no citrus berries, there's no, obviously there's no of that green berry. I completely forgot the name, I apologize. But if none of those is there, instead of getting those, it will grab some aeos energy. If there's no aeos energy or that in play, instead it just basically reduces the cooldown of this, so you can use it again. So if it does warp, it takes 40 seconds for this to go back. If it doesn't get anything, it takes only 20 seconds, so basically half of that. So this passive is really good. It's really crazy because you could literally use this to steal berries from the opposing side. It's actually pretty crazy. Early game, I think this passive is so good because you can use it to take, berries away from the opposing side. If they need to heal, you can steal one of their berries, making it more difficult for the enemies to heal. So they'll have to force the enemies to play a bit more safer, basically, unless they have a Pokemon to heal them like Blissey or like an opposing Hoopa, stuff like that. Magician just taking those berries early is just actually pretty devastating. It could definitely be devastating, but it depends on what the Pokemon is, of course. But other than that, it's definitely pretty crazy. And that passive, honestly, for this Pokemon. So let's go ahead and talk. Let's go into the progression here. So obviously, you already see here, Hoopa does not evolve, but when you use your Unite move, you become Hoopa Unbound, of course, which you already know about this. You already know about Hoopa's Unite, so Hoopa's a supporter, so it always wants to be lane. You definitely don't take this to jungle. Obviously, people joke around about taking supports to jungle. I don't think it's really. It's definitely required. I really don't think you want to do that. Obviously, people can joke about it, but they're obviously not going to work with that, of course. So, and then this is the leveling, of course. Hoopa, like I mentioned before, does not evolve. So you just lane it with your ally to help it to support all that good stuff, and that's pretty much all you need to do. So let's go ahead and go into Hoopa's moves. So at level 1 to 3, you have a choice between Astonish and Confusion. So we'll go ahead and talk about these moves. So we'll start with Astonish. So Astonish is a move that deals damage to opposing Pokemon in the designated area of effect, leaving them unable to act for a short time. So this move is nice because this move allows you to stun an enemy for a short time, which I think is it's actually pretty crazy for beginning, especially for a move to use in the beginning of the battle. I think it's really it could be pretty devastating early game, depending on how you utilize it. You could use it to prevent a weakened enemy from getting away, or if your ally is weak and they're trying to catch up to it, you can use it to stun the enemy to allow your ally to back off if needed. So I think this move is fantastic. Of course, that's a great move to start things off. And then Confusion is a move that has to use to unleash a telekinetic force, excuse me, in the designated direction, dealing damage to the first opposing Pokemon it hits. The force clings to that Pokemon and then causes a delayed explosion. The explosion deals damage to opposing Pokemon in the area of effect and decreases their movement speed for a short time. So nice move. It's basically used to it does damage while and then it connects to an enemy, and then after a set time it'll explode and then it'll slow down that enemy. So it's pretty nice. So Hoopa has moves to help hit stun the enemy for a short time, and then Confusion to help to slow them down basically. So both of those moves are really nice for early game. So all that good stuff. I'm sorry guys, I did not mean to click that. Now let's go ahead and talk about its moves here. So we have Trick and Hyperspace Hole. So let's talk about Trick first, before we go into Hyperspace Hole. So Trick as a move is interesting because this move basically creates a link between Hoopa and an ally, and then increases both movement speeds and granting them each a shield for a short time. And then when this move is combo, this move is good because it combos with Shadow basically. Well, I shouldn't really say it's good, but when Hoopa uses Shadow Ball or performs a basic attack, the ring on the linked Pokemon also unleashes the same move or attack. So basically, if your other move happens to be Shadow Ball, and you use it while this ring is set up between you and your ally. If you use Shadow Ball or if you use a basic attack, your ally will basically have the same move, basically. So you have basically two of the same moves coming out from Hoopa as well as the ally as well too. So it's interesting. It's interesting. And then Hoopa can also use this move on itself, increasing Hoopa's movement speed and granting itself a shield for a short time. So that's pretty cool because if you actually Azelfi, not the time. So basically, if you actually have no allies near you, this move is great because what this allows you to do is this basically you can use it on yourself, give yourself a movement speed increase, and then make yourself a bit more bulkier. So that's pretty cool. And then this move also increases the damage dealt by Shadow Ball, which is pretty cool. I don't really use Shadow Ball that much anymore, and we're gonna talk about later a little bit later as to why. But we're gonna go ahead and also talk about the upgrade as to what you get. Well, you get the upgrade. It also restores the linked allies Pokemon HP when it deals damage to opposing Pokemon. So basically, when the ally does damage, it heals itself too with this move. So that's pretty cool. So now I'm going to go ahead and talk about Hyperspace Hole because Hyperspace Hole they actually did get some buffs, of course, because Hyperspace Hole did get a cooldown reduction as well as so basically the latest buffs with this is that it got a cooldown before ally Pokemon can return to the warp location reduced. It was reduced from 15 seconds to 10 seconds. And then cooldown before Hoopa and an ally Pokemon start recovering HP, returning to base decrease from 0.5 to 0, basically. So what this move does is Hoopa creates a large ring, dealing damage to opposing Pokemon in area of effect. So it creates a little area, a designated locate, a large ring, and if Hoopa or the ally happen to be in that ring by the time after a set amount of time passes, you would instantly warp yourself back to base, and then you have a little movement speed increase for a short time. Ally and Pokemon that return to their base in this manner must wait a short time before the HP recovery from being in their base triggers. And then these allies can also warp back to where the large ring was created, and so basically this move is great because you can use this to teleport your allies back to base if they're low, so they can heal back at base and then teleport back into where the ring was first placed so they can get back into battle extremely healthy. So I think that's really good. I think it's really really useful for sure when it comes down to it, to utilizing it. And this move is also good because you can also use this to on goals. So an attacked ally forward goal zone can also be designated as the location where the large ring is created. Creating the ring on the forward goal zone on the top half will also create a ring on the forward goal zone on the bottom half, and vice versa. And all allied Pokemon, including Hoopa, can use these rings to warp between the two goal zones, and their movement speed will be increased for a short time after warping. And then after allied Pokemon warps, there is a set cooldown before an ally can use these rings again. So this move is great, in my opinion, is fantastic. Basically, to be able to maneuver yourself from top path to bottom path and etc. So let's say, for example, okay, you want to go for bottom Reggie right away. You want to make sure that your whole team's there. You can use this move on your team's goal zone and create a little bit of a warp. So your team that happens to be on the top lane can warp themselves to bottom lane really quickly and be in time for the bottom Reggie. And then when you need to go back top lane, you could just use the rings and just go right back up to top lane. I think this is fantastic to be able to maneuver your team from bottom to top lane and etc. Basically, so I think this thing is really good. So and then it says here if a path's forward goal zone is destroyed, the middle goal will take its place basically. And then this move cannot be used on base goal zones. So something to take note of when it comes to that. And then with the upgrade, it also increases the movement speed of ally Pokemon near the ring when they are heading towards it. So basically, this is good because when you get that upgrade, if an ally is close to the ring, that ally gets a movement speed increase as they're heading towards that ring. So I think that's really useful. So Hyperspace Hole, in my opinion, definitely is better right now, especially with the buff that it did receive. To now, the cooldown reduction from 12 to 10 seconds. Being able to also, of course, HP recovery, of course, I think it's really nice. Um, the buff that it got with this, honestly, in my opinion, is definitely really good. Trick, I still think it's not bad, but I think Hyperspace Hole is really where it's at. The only downside with this move is that you really definitely need a really good, um, well synced team to really make this work. And also, if they do break your front goals basically before then. this will make this a little bit more weaker if the goals are broken, because then it's like you'll have to go further back to be able to teleport, which I think definitely will hinder you quite a bit. So that's the only weaknesses I'd say about it. But if your team is well synced and able to utilize it perfectly and work together, then I think Hyperspace Hole is definitely better. But in solo queue, I think probably you may want to consider using Trick. I think for solo queue, but if you have a well synced team, I think Hyperspace Hole is definitely the way, 100%. Next up, we're going to go ahead and talk about is Phantom Force and Shadow Ball. So we're going to start with Shadow Ball first. So Shadow Ball here has the user you unleash a shadowy blob. So this decreases their movement speed and special defense for a short time. I think it was the same effect as Gengar's too, I believe. That's that checked. And then if the user that hits the same opposing Pokemon with a move or boosted attack within a set amount of time, it deals additional damage to the opposing Pokemon, leaves them unable to act for a short time. When using this move, if there is a nearby ally Pokemon linked by Trick, this move will also unleash a shadowy blob at the same target from that ally's location. So it's pretty cool. So you'll get the you'll if it, again Shadow Ball combos well with Trick, because then if you use this move while you're near your linked ally, then the ally uses this move as well, and it has the same effects from this Shadow Ball on the ally's Shadow Ball as well too when it hits the enemy, of course. And then the upgrade makes it that it'll explode. Will be able to explode before it disappears, and then opposing Pokemon that are hit by this explosion are affected as they were hit by the shadowy blob itself. So basically, if the shadow ball barely misses the target, but then it explodes, the effects of the special defense as well as the movement speed decreasing will still be in effect as well too. So they like it will get hit by a shadow ball. So shadow ball trick combo is basically the way you want to is the way you want to do it. Now we gotta talk about Phantom Force, because Phantom Force got a massive buff. Before, this move required you to target an ally Pokemon. Now you only have to target any location, which I think that's a huge buff, because now this makes Phantom Force definitely better than it used to be. So what this move says, Hoopa creates a ring under itself and warps to a designated Pokemon's location, dealing damage to nearby opposing Pokemon at that location and shoving them. Hoopa can then shoot two center flames that deal damage to opposing Pokemon. They hit and decreases their movement speed for a short time. This move can be used a second time within a set amount of time. If used a second time, Hoopa can return to the initial location where it warped from. When using this move and there is a nearby ally Pokemon that is linked by Trick, that ally can also warp to the initial ring's location. The ally Pokemon that warps in this way will recover some HP. Okay, I actually didn't know this, but if you actually do run Trick and you go with the Phantom Force, if you happen to use if there happens to be an ally that's near you, basically that a nearby ally that has been linked by Trick, the ally could basically use the ring. So Phantom Force I think is definitely nice, because what this move allows you to do is you have when you use the move, the first location of which you use the move will pretty much be the ring, the initial location basically. So basically where you use the move to where you teleport, you will be able to teleport to any place, and then you can teleport back to the initial location where you first used this move. And if you happen to pair this with Trick and the linked ally happens to be nearby, they can also use the ring to teleport back to where you use this move. So I think that's I actually didn't know this was actually works with Trick with linked Pokemon with Trick. I actually didn't know that actually until I read this. But I think Phantom Force in my opinion is definitely better right now than Shadow Ball, because before you have to designate a targeted Pokemon with this move, but now you only have to just target a location, which that was the latest buff that it got. It no longer requires you to target a Pokemon's location. Rather, instead of Pokemon location, it just targets a location basically. So it could be basically anything. So I think that's a really nice buff to Hoopa's Phantom Force, because I felt like this move was definitely underwhelming with before it got that buff. So now I think it's definitely really good. You definitely want to utilize that Phantom Force, because personally for me, I used to play Shadow Ball, but now that Phantom Force got that buff, I think this move is fantastic, because it's basically a bit of a dash and a hindrance at one, and being able to teleport back when needed. It's actually pretty crazy. Maybe I'll experiment Trick in the future with the Phantom Force combo to see if that works. But the fact that it can actually work with linked Pokemon that are linked with Trick, I actually didn't I actually forgot that was actually even a thing. Actually, so that's actually really cool. So you learn something new every day. True. Anyways, now let's go ahead and go into its unite move. So basically, Hoopa's unite move is basically when it transforms into its unbound form. So let's go ahead and read this, and then we're gonna go ahead and pull up Hoopa Unbound's moves, and we're gonna read about how all those work as well. So Hoopa's Unite transforms the user into Hoopa Unbound for a short time, increasing the user's max HP and creating a ring at the designated location. Each ally Pokemon can warp to the ring's location once only. And then, as Hoopa Unbound, the user's moves change to Hyperspace Fury and Cyber, which we're gonna go ahead and read about those in just a little bit. And then, as Hoopa Unbound, the user cannot score goals or activate its ability. So basically, it's passive; it cannot be used while you unite. So remember, when you unite with Hoopa, you cannot score. You have to wait till the unite finishes before you can score. So basically keep that in mind. But this unite move is, in my opinion, is pretty strong because what this unite allows you to do is it transforms you into Hoopa Unbound, making you an offensive threat, offensive powerhouse for a short time, which I think is really cool. And the most stronger part of this move basically allows you to teleport your team to where you are basically. So let's say this move is fantastic because it has so much really good use, especially for the Reggie fight, for the bottom Reggie fight, for the Regieleki fight, or more importantly for the Rayquaza fight. You want to make sure like this move is fantastic because you could just use your Unite, and any allies that happen to have fainted before you had used this unite, you can use this unite to pretty much teleport them directly to the raid fight immediately and turn the tide. I think this unite move, in my opinion, is still pretty crazy. And this unite move also, by the way, guys, did receive a cooldown reduction into which it takes a while for this unite move before to pop open. So before you had to use this unite move at just the right times, but now that they reduced the Unite cooldown reduction by 15%. So now this Unite move comes out more consistently now than it did before, which I think is really crazy. So this Unite move can definitely win the game if used in the right way. So yeah, I think the Hoopa's Unite is just really good. It's definitely something to take note of. So before we go ahead and end this video, but of course we're gonna talk about what Hoopa's Unite moves do. So obviously when you get to your net move, you get access to Hyperspace Fury and Psybeam. So let's talk about Hyperspace Fury first. So this move has the user unleash a barrage of attacks in the designated area with as many arms, dealing damage to opposing Pokemon in the area affected, leaving them unable to act for a short time. So this takes the place of either, I believe it's Hyperspace Hole, and yeah, Hyperspace Hole or Trick, depending on whichever move you have. This takes the place when you're a Hoopa Unbound, and it gives you a really strong move that also stuns for a short time, which I think is pretty crazy. So that's something that's really good to take note of as well too. And then you also have Psybeam, which takes the place of either Phantom Force or Shadow Ball. And what this move does is it has the user fire a particular rate in front of itself in a horizontal sweeping motion, dealing damage to opposing Pokemon it hits. And then while this Pokemon is using Psybeam, it becomes immune to hindrances while using this move. So that's also pretty nice as well too. So it only gets access to these moves, however, when you unite with this Pokemon. So you want to utilize these moves because you only do get a set amount of time to use these moves before it transforms you back into its other form. So these moves are really good, especially Hyperspace Fury, being able to stun any Pokemon that this move happens to hit for a short time. So that's something to take note of when you utilize this move. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for Hoopa. For items, for this Pokemon, I feel like EXP Share is definitely a really useful item on this Pokemon because being able to help your ally level up, on lane is actually really nice, and also gives Hoopa some HP and movement speed as well. So it's always really nice. You could also run stuff like Focus Band. You could probably even also run like muscle. You could probably go like Muscle Band, maybe like a Choice Specs to do slightly more damage as well too, especially for when you unite. Because look at those stats buffs when you unite. You actually do a crazy amount of damage with this when you unite as well too, which I think is pretty crazy. So that's something to take note of as well too. So you could definitely opt to go a little bit more offensive with this Pokemon if you really want to, just to set up for the unite. So, but I think that I feel like for me personally, I usually play Hoopa for support to help my team get away when needed and to teleport my team back to base if needed as well too. But that's the thing I like about Hoopa. Back then when remote stadium was a thing, Hoopa was utilized so much because the healing that you were able to get from when you were at base was you gained a lot of HP quite a bit when you were at base, honestly. But with their Skyrims, they did nerf the healing in the base quite a bit, so that's why Hoopa did kind of drop in usage because of the heals, the heals that that you have when you teleport back to base with the Hyperspace Hole. But ultimately, nowadays with these buffs, I think Hoopa, in my opinion, is pretty good. Is it a Pokemon that you should purchase with your aeos coins? I'm gonna say yes and no. Yes if you have a well coordinated sync team. Like this Hoopa is a fantastic support for a well organized synchronized team because Hoopa has so many great kit tools in his kit that helps the team so much, especially being able to maneuver your team, from top lane to bottom lane at a pretty consistent pace with a hyperspace hole, which I think is fantastic when it comes down to it. But if you're doing solo queue, you don't if you have a teammates that don't know what they're doing and they're just slacking, they're just throwing the game for no reason, then Hoopa falls super duper short. So I say yes if you do have a really good team if you have a good team to work with, a good synchronized coordinated team, then yes, Hoopa is fantastic for a well coordinated synchronized team, obviously. But if you're solo queue and you're working with randoms that don't know how to play, then I'd say no. You're probably better off with something like Eldegoss or Blissey, I think. So yeah, those are my that's my deep dive on Hoopa. I hope you guys enjoyed. If there's anything at all regarding Hoopa that I missed at all, as I already discussed, let me know in the comments below. And if there's some really good info that I missed out, I will pin your comment, of course, so people can I'll of course read as well too. So yeah, guys, that's gonna be it for this episode of the Unite Deep Dive. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell if you guys enjoyed all these type of videos. And I'll catch you guys next time. Take care.